I'm Jay Schroeder, developer of the EVO training system and protocols for the POV.
I'm Ryan Small, founder of Discover Your Game Training Systems. We train lacrosse players in the skill sets of lacrosse. I see trainers all the time telling athletes that we have a strength and conditioning program for you that's specific to your sport. And I'm sure you've heard that a lot, and I hear it every day. And from what I've learned here, there seems to be a misunderstanding to, does that actually exist? Is there really such thing as that versus is there not?
Well, there is such a thing because that's what they're doing.
Good point.
Unfortunately, none of us were born lacrosse players.
Right.
We were born humans. So the simple answer is perfect being a human being, and then you, the coach, can teach anything that that person needs to know in order to be successful at lacrosse. Right. If I'm not completely developed as a human, how am I ever going to learn efficiently what you're trying to teach? It's going to be compensatory action after compensatory action right from the beginning.
Right.
Can we perform? Yes. But have you ever met a lacrosse player who was energetically 100% perfectly efficient?
No, never.
Or one that has never been injured or missed time?
Nope, probably not.
Then something's wrong.
Right. So it's all about human-specific movement versus
being an efficient human.
Being an efficient human. Gotcha.
Let's just talk about an aspect of human life that can enhance one's neurological proficiency. That's simply breathing. If one was to breathe appropriately, they'll be able to fuel themselves to do the things they're asking themselves to do. You then will have a greater chance of doing what you need to do appropriately. But we've missed that point. The basics elude us because they have little to nothing to do with the activity or the sport, so people think. So they just leave them by the wayside. So if we were to just practice breathing or become efficient or master breathing, your skill would change. You'd notice a huge difference in the athlete or the person wanting to be the athlete participating in your lacrosse camps.
Instead, people are jumping right into doing cleans and things like that, right?
Yeah, and those are all really good if you're prepared to accept what comes from them.
Right.
Again, things like preparation, such as breathing, have eluded us for year after year after year. I had a hockey player's agent call me the other day and say he didn't want to do the basic stuff. He just wanted to go to the good stuff, the stuff that I give the elite guys.
Right.
You know,
it's fun.
Well, they think that since they've been doing something for whatever number of years or months or whatever it is, that they're prepared to do something advanced. And advanced always appeals to people.
Right.
In reality, it holds people back. If you were to just simply do what you're prepared to recover from and master that, well, then your level would change greatly.
So they might be like advanced at hockey, at the skill of hockey, and they are just assuming that they're advanced in the on the physiological side, right?
And neurological side.
And
how do we know that? Well, because you haven't met a person in lacrosse, and you've been doing this for at least a year, right?
Yeah, no, I've been doing it for a while.
A long time.
Yeah.
Okay. You haven't met anyone who's been 100% energetic efficient and anyone who hasn't missed any time due to injury.
Right.
There's a problem. That means we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing. And all it simply is we want to do the cool stuff. We want to do the stuff that makes us think we're becoming better rather than the things that truly make us better.
Right. Which is the basics, as I understand it.
Stand at military attention for 10 minutes with no outside interference appropriately. And notice how your performance and everything changes just from standing at military attention.
It's amazing.
It's a basic that people have not even thought of, nor are they willing to master. It's excruciating to do that for 10 minutes.
So recently I was working with a lacrosse player who had just started playing lacrosse about, I'd say, 1.5 years ago. And he started working with me, and we started on the basics. For me, when I'm teaching a skill like lacrosse, I'm equally as obsessed over the basics as, well, maybe not equally, but I'm working on it, as Jay is, on with training. And all we worked on was the simple mechanics of throwing. That's all we ever worked on. He subscribed to the EVO Performance Plus program, and he's diligent. He does it every single day, And he came back a month later. We hadn't worked together. He just taken what I had asked him to do and worked with the EVO program. And this kid was throwing overhand perfectly. He was shooting better than one of our best players on our high school team, who's going to be playing Division I lacrosse. In one weekend of playing in a summer tournament, he had more goals and more assists than he did in his entire 2-year career at the high school level. So in one weekend, his output for goals and assists, I think that he got 12 points total. In 2 years of participating in lacrosse, he had acquired 2 points. It was just one weekend of lacrosse, so that was a total of about, I'd say, 4 games. It was amazing. It was just a tournament. And he was playing at a higher level. He plays at a lower level when he plays for the high school. When he goes to these recruiting tournaments, there's better players there. So you'd expect him to suffer. But he actually performed at a higher level. I attribute it right to him being diligent with the EVO program and paying attention to the basics, like we all obsess over, but very few people actually want to do, you know?
Yeah, the Performance Plus program is nothing but basics.
Right.
Just organized in a way that you might think it's something different.
Yeah.
So that you'll do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And not go, oh, I'm too far beyond this. My years are beyond. Did you do any other assessing for anything else beyond what you had worked with them at to see if that had changed also?
Yeah. So actually, I hadn't even taught him how to shoot yet. And so he came back from his vacation, and we went into shooting, and it took me about 30 seconds. I don't even attribute it to me teaching him anything. He just did it. And it was amazing. We're like, okay, we're good. You know?
He was able to get into the position necessary to execute what you instructed.
Yeah, it was so simple, it was crazy. And, I mean, he was all
simple,
smiles.
it's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it really is.
Right.
It's available to everyone and anyone if they take the time to do that.
And that's what it seems to me, at least through my experience, I'm sure it is the case with you, that it's the simple stuff that people just hate to do. And for him, it was, I call it the big domino that just knocks over the rest of the small dominoes. For you, it's holding position. For me, in lacrosse, well, I guess it's the same thing, actually. It's learning position with a stick.
So there's a position in everything you do in lacrosse?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. Right? Right.
There's a position to everything.
There's a position to everything.
And if you can't get there appropriately or efficiently, you're never going to stand a chance to display that skill the way you as a coach want it done, or they as a player need it done to grasp the attention of people who are going to give them a scholarship or write a paycheck.
Right. And it's so funny because I've never tested this kid's bench press, his squat, none of it. I have no idea what he can do, but everyone's talking about how much better of an athlete he is. And and maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but all I know is his results are a lot better than they were just, 2 or 3 months ago. So.
Ultimately, that's what matters.
Right, and that's the only thing that does matter.
It doesn't matter if you're a better bencher, a better squatter, or a better jumper. Now, you will be those things if you train to be an efficient human, but the bottom line is, do you do better on the field of play?
Because that's why we do it.
Well, in theory.
In theory, right. Gotcha. For me, in the way I understand everything with position, I've taken a lot of what I learned from you guys and tried to apply it to the lacrosse side of things. So 90-degree angles and straight lines, as I understand it. And no matter how good of an athlete or a lacrosse player I may have, I start them all at the 90-degree position of throwing a ball with a lacrosse stick. For me, it's amazing because even if I have a kid who's excelling at a high level, I just teach them the basics of how to throw. Because really, 99% of all lacrosse players I see out there, now that I've been educated, really don't even know how to throw. And these are guys who are playing professionally as well at the top D1 college levels. So for me, the idea of position and understanding position has become almost the only thing that matters, at least when I'm training lacrosse players. And so when you're learning position in the weight room or here or whatever it is you're doing, how does that contribute to learning a skill more effectively?
If the muscles have the ability to execute the action they were designed for, and they begin in a position that allows them to be biomechanically efficient, there's nothing they can't do.
Right.
So bench press relates directly to throwing. Squat relates directly to, because if your feet aren't underneath you, if you're not in a position where you can use whatever you need to use by how you teach, nothing will ever happen. Everything here is simply about muscles understanding their role and being able to recover from that role and the execution of that role. There really isn't anything more to it. People want to make more of it.
Right.
But if you can stand straight, then you could throw a lacrosse ball, is that what it's called?
Yeah, a lacrosse ball.
A lacrosse ball
Yeah.
more efficiently.
Right.
Or a baseball, or hit a tennis ball more efficiently holding a racket.
Right.
The biggest problem in all of these activities is consistency, replication of movement. From beginning of game to end of game to second or third game during the week, or fifth or sixth game during the month, or the practices and whatever else may happen. Okay, that's the biggest problem.
Duplicating.
Yeah, they can't replicate anything.
Right.
But if your brain only knows how to get you into one position and then how to use a muscle in a very specific manner, then that's all it'll ever do. They won't know to do anything else. You know, it's like a young child who has a cold and their nose is plugged. And we take that little bulb because they just, try and suck those boogers right up through their nose because they don't know any better. So we get this bulb and we suck it out, and now we feel better, because they don't sound as congested. An adult will just start breathing through our mouth.
Right.
Our nose is plugged, no big deal. We'll start breathing through our mouth. That little simple act right there starts a process of dominoes falling. That,
in a bad way.
Yeah, that never ends and creates compensatory action upon compensatory action.
Right.
And so we lose the ability to replicate anything. So training in the weight room is really no different than training on the lacrosse field. But people think of it as different.
Right.
Here, we just try and think of it at one and the same. Right angles in here is still a right angle on the lacrosse field.
It's a right angle. And when you talk about compensatory, it makes more sense to me now, because when I see a kid out on the field and he's starting to fatigue, for some reason, I don't know if this is just in lacrosse, but they tend to stick out their hip before they throw. And I always call it stacking, joint over joint over joint over joint. So when they're just standing still and throwing, they're always doing that. And we try to repeat it, like you say, so they can't get it wrong. And those kids who are able to repeat it consistently, they have much better games. And not to mention, they come out of the game with more energy, which is... when you play a game very well, at least from my experience, I come out with energy. I'm like, I could play for another 2 hours. But if you play a poor game, you come out exhausted. And my guess is that's because you're always compensating for something.
Yeah, if
your
you're out
muscles
of position,
are constantly, right?
Muscles begin to compete for the same finite amount of energy. Let's talk about something you said where you practice it. How many times, if you were to teach me a skill right now on lacrosse, how many times in a row will I actually do it correctly? If you give it to me 10 times, how many of those 10 will I execute with everything being appropriate? The same emotional input, the same intellectual input, the same neurological, the same physiological, the exact same position, the same rate of acceleration, the same rate of deceleration.
How many times will you execute it appropriately?
Even you're skilled. How many times out of 10 will you do it right?
Oh, man, maybe 2.
Maybe 2. So in reality, what you're saying is we don't really want to practice.
Yeah.
We want to perfect the ability to get into position so that we can make, when we do practice, the way it's supposed to be executed. That way our brain only has one choice when we go on the field to play.
It only knows one way.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what we do in training. And we call it a lot of different things, neurological stimulation and, is kind of the buzzword. Reality, it's all just based on one thing. Train the muscles to do what they're supposed to do. Allow the energy systems to be able to fuel them. Allow the brain to understand the information that comes from their moving so that it can respond based on reflex patterns and reflex arcs. If we do that, you're automatically going to play lacrosse more efficiently. I don't believe you actually need to practice. If you were to watch someone highly skilled like yourself and then train your body, your mind, your nervous system to do what it's supposed to do, you can go out there and perform straight away and be very good.
Right.
Because as you just told us, there's no such thing as perfect, replicatable practice.
Right.
We can do that in here.
That's what I love.
How does the POV allow training to be more efficient? It's really simple. The POV sends the exact same signal in the exact same manner every single time. The things that we don't do as a human when we practice, it sends it exactly the same. It will never be any different if it's at 3 in the morning on a Wednesday or a 5 in the afternoon on a Saturday. We may have extremely different emotional inputs, right? Saturday, weekday, fun weekend, something's coming up, or whatever the case may be. We look at things different. That affects how we perform in practice. POV doesn't care.
Right.
That electrical bit of information is always the same.
Right.
It then can shorten the amount of preparation time to be able to become elite. How much can it shorten? Well, we've seen it shorten by 70%.
Wow. That's a lot of time.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Without practicing.
Right.
Okay. Without practicing. Imagine if you had to raise your voice every single time somebody wanted you to. It's difficult to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. But when you're reminded of it, and that's what the POV is. The POV is just an electrical bit of information that reminds your brain to make the right decision.
Yeah.
Wow. How many times do you have to yell at your students?
Oh, my God.
Jay, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
Jay, I just went over that. Well, maybe they didn't have the right emotional input, the intellectual participation. Maybe they were standing inappropriately when you were telling them what to do. You don't have time to pay attention to that. That's why you have somebody like us who prepares your athletes to automatically do this. Then you can become a better coach and coach lacrosse. You don't have to worry about anything else. Imagine if you could do that.
Yeah, just coaching a skill.
That's what POV and EVO offers.
Yeah. So it's funny, in lacrosse there's this big buzz about, and all these college recruiters always talk about, you know, I'm looking for kids who are 6'2", 200 pounds, and I find it so ironic because they have players who are my size, 5'8", 175 pounds, and I played at the highest level. I played at a Division I program, and I played professionally. And I wasn't one of the best players of all time, but a lot of the best players to ever play our sport are 5'9", 5'8". Some are 5'6", and these guys are unbelievable. And some are even slow. So they've got the worst of both things that people always talk about. They're short and they're slow. Yet these guys have statistical stats that are unbelievable, right? And it's mind bending to some people. And I was hoping you could help me out with that. Understand it. What makes them good? Why are they able to excel? When they're not fast and they're short.
Simply, anybody who excels at anything is efficient at moving from position to position and remaining in that position and at high velocity.
Okay.
They learn it by hook or by crook. A lot of people learn it by mistake. It doesn't matter how big you are, how fast you are. There are several NFL players that were always thought of as being fast, yet when I spoke to their position coaches, they said they're some of the slowest at their position. But their ability to understand where to be and their ability to be in position to get themselves there made up for that speed, and you, the coach, thought, oh my God, they're so fast.
Right.
There's
something fast.
Yeah, there's something important in what you said. People look to bigger and stronger to replace speed.
Okay. Yeah.
In every sport, people think of it that way. Even in tennis, where you think it's just a skill, okay, they're looking for bigger and stronger, because you know what? I don't think coaches today can actually coach someone to be in position, to be able to move at a high rate of velocity to another position and remain in position. They just can't do it. So they look for bigger and stronger. The smallest, most powerful athlete will always win because they are the most efficient. Now, if you happen to be 6'2", 270, and can do this,
yeah, right.
Yeah, those are the guys you sign. Those are the guys you want to coach. I want to coach.
Right.
Because they're the superstars.
Right.
Okay? Chances are we're not going to find that combination. But everything is learned. And at EVO, we believe we can teach that, or as people like to say, we can relearn them.
Because we all knew it when we were young, right?
We did.
Is that okay?
When we were little kids and we jump and we run, we were explosive, we were never injured, we never ran out of energy, but we were never in the weight room. We were never practicing skills, yet we could do all these things, and we were just young children.
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
Yeah.
Well, we know how to move when we're young. So maybe we should just relearn what that is, or relearn how to interpret that information to be able to execute whatever it is we're trying to do. That's what EVO is. That's why you're here. That's why some of your students have experienced really good results with us and through you without us being there, because it's all the same information.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
It never changes.
Yeah, no, even with just the basic Plus program, a kid comes out and he learns something so quickly, and it's awesome. And we get to move on to the next skill that everyone wants to do.
So they learn something more quickly by being more efficient as a human being. I think that's a concept that most people either don't know, don't understand, or don't care to understand. But in reality, the bottom line is this: the individual becomes better on the field, and you appear to be a better coach. Who doesn't want that?
Exactly. For me, as an athlete growing up, I was obsessed with lacrosse. That was the only thing I cared about, okay? And so I grew up learning certain weightlifting routines, and these routines were always, you do your chest on Monday, you do your lower body on Tuesday, you take Wednesday off, and, down the ladder we go. And yet, with lacrosse, it was always keep your stick in your hand every day, all day, if you want to get better. So I would lift a certain way, X amount of days, and I'd do what I thought was right, but my stick would be my hand every single day because I'm trying to learn a skill and become better at it. And for me, it made no sense. Why don't I not have to take a day off of practicing lacrosse, yet I have to take a day off of training my body? And it never made any sense to me. And EVO is the only program that's ever made any sense to me when it came to...
How does it make sense to you with regard to what you're talking about right now?
Well, for me, every day you either get better or you get worse. So at least that's how I look at it. Yeah. And so if you're not going to train your body one day, you're probably going to plummet a little bit. How much I don't know, but that's just my guess.
Let's talk about that. Let me ask you a question. Is there ever a day that your kidneys take off?
No.
Is there ever a day that your heart takes off?
No.
Is there ever a day that your eyes take off?
No. Never.
So as a human, you don't need to take days off.
Right.
But as a sportsman, you need to take days off. Yeah. That doesn't make sense. Okay, we should be able to perform every single day at whatever level it is that we want to perform at. What people don't do is they don't prepare to do that. They just do it. And they experience all the things that we call overtraining. Or they get sore. Or they get tired. Well, what kind of tired is it? Emotional? Intellectual? Because I've never met anyone in my whole life that's ever been neurologically fatigued.
Yeah, okay.
Unless they were in an accident or sustained severe trauma from surgeries or something. But just playing a sport, I've never met anybody who was truly neurologically fatigued or muscularly fatigued. They were fatigued here and here.
That's it.
Because we don't prepare to do that. We lift weights, we run, and we jump, and we hold the stick in our hand. But we do it at 93% intensely regarding physiology, intellect, psychology, emotion, and spirit. Now, we usually do 1, 2, maybe on the outside 3 of those, but we never involve all of those aspects. So when we go out there, there is always a flaw. There is always a point that you will push yourself to, that you will experience what we call overtraining or fatigue or whatever anybody wants to refer to it as. Simply, you didn't prepare enough to do that. There is no time to take off. 24 hours a day, we are preparing to do whatever it is we're going to ask ourselves to do. For you, you wanted to be a lacrosse player, and that's how you lived. Okay? Did you really do everything you could 24 hours a day? Did you breathe appropriately 24 hours a day? Did you sit erect 24 hours a day? Did you stand erect 24 hours a day? When you were standing, did you stand appropriately? Or did you lean to one side? When you got up from the toilet, did you assist yourself in getting up? When you sat down to the toilet, did you assist yourself down, or did you just fall to it? When you get up out of the chair, did you typically do what people do, put your hands on your legs or create momentum in some way? Yes. So were you really doing 24 hours a day what you need to do? Were you really living being a lacrosse player? No. Being a lacrosse player, in your mind, 24 hours a day, means that you have to live as an efficient human 24 hours a day. Did you dream every night, 3 to 5 times, remembering each of those? Did you have solid waste after every meal or snack? Probably not.
No, I don't
so
think
you
so.
weren't doing everything. You
Right.
were doing the things that were fun to you. Holding a lacrosse stick in your hand is fun. It's a game. You get to throw. You get to run. You get to run into people. You get to score goals. But that isn't the part that makes you a better player. What makes you a better player is mastering the neurological system of the human, which in turn allows you to master everything else. That's what EVO is. That's what the POV allows for you to have, so that you can go out there one of these days and do nothing but lacrosse 24 hours a day if that's what you want to do.
Right.
Okay? That's training. So you didn't do everything possible.
Correct.
You did the things that you enjoyed or didn't mind sacrificing during the day. The stuff that we're talking about is the stuff that people mind doing.
Right.
Because it comes at a great cost. It comes at a cost emotionally. Think back to an emotional experience that you had. Something traumatic happened in your life, good or bad. Afterwards, you were very drained, weren't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because you weren't prepared for that to happen. But if you can prepare yourself to do that, and that's through what we, 4 basic steps: breathe, sit, stand, and walk. And if you prepare by doing those things, lacrosse 24 hours a day is nothing. Sitting and breathing appropriately is nothing 24 hours a day. Walking appropriately, standing, getting up, or sitting down from a standing position. You never have to think about it. The hard part is thinking about it. Okay? But when you watch young children, they just do it. Yet we didn't teach them that. Yet they just do it. But those of us who, we went to the strength coach,
Right.
we went to the sport skill coach, we're the ones who experience all those problems.
Right.
Okay? So 24 hours a day, you want to dedicate yourself to being an efficient human being. And then lacrosse, you get to display that. If you were to score, I have no idea. You were very good, I know. But I have no idea if you scored an average of 4 goals a game.
Yeah, that's a good game.
Okay, that's a good game. What if you were able to score 8 goals a game, every game? What if you were as fast on the last game of the year as you were at the first game of the year? Would that be of benefit to you in lacrosse?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because very few others are going to be prepared to do that. So your 4 goals per game could go to 8, and your 8 could go to 10 or 12. Okay? Then you don't mind doing all these other things, right?
Right.
Because there's a reward at the end. There's that carrot dangling from something at the end. That reward is there. But there is no reward if you don't prepare for it or if you don't understand what it is.
Right. And that was for me growing up. I thought I was doing the right things, and I'd sacrifice
and we all do, right?
Right?
We all do. And we have people every day telling us, get in the weight room, get out and practice.
Right.
But as we discovered earlier, very rarely do you do 10 out of 10 correctly, which means if you did 2 of them, 8 other times you learned how to have a compensatory action.
So you're actually getting worse.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's why the weight room is so important. And not necessarily a weight room, but somewhere you go that allows you to master the skills of the human being.
Right.
When that happens, Katie bar the door.
Yeah.
Anything's possible. Imagine what you could do with someone who was neurologically prepared to endure everything and anything you could throw at them. How good could you make them?
Oh yeah, they'd be unstoppable.
They'd be unstoppable.
And that's what I want. You know?
That's what EVO is after.
Yeah.
That's why you're with us, why we're with you.
Yeah.
Because we share that same idea. That same end in mind is to not be the best, but to set a standard for all human beings that ever want to display this skill.
To be better than the best.
That's right. To go where others haven't even dreamed.
Right. It's funny you talk about the younger kids, because I've learned a lot of this from you guys as I've been following you and reading blogs or whatever the case may be. And I always tell my kids to watch a young kid stand in a sandbox and a squat and play with his trucks. Yeah. And I'm like, just try doing it for, I don't know, 10 seconds. And they can't do it for even, I have a hard time doing it for 10 seconds, you know? Yet these kids don't even think about it.
That's right.
And they're so efficient.
Breathe, sit, stand, and walk.
Yeah, it's as simple as that.
Those are the basics of everything. And if you do that, I mean, we've had people that did nothing but breathe appropriately, and not all day, as they admitted, but things change, such as sleeping and dreaming, their attitude during the day, the elimination of waste, their appetite. They no longer desired or didn't desire as many, quote, foods that are bad for you, just by breathing appropriately for more time during the day than they did prior to meeting us. One simple thing. Imagine if we put breathe, sit, stand, and walk together. Now, we have the POV. The POV is a cool little tool that reminds your brain quite quickly. Nothing gets to your brain faster than the information from the POV except human touch. Okay? So we have an advantage of doing that, because how many people do you know and do I know that are truly going to be disciplined enough to do this every single day?
Right.
They're already competing and having some level of success. We all think we're beyond that because we've done something for a while.
And they want to go relax.
That's right. So that's why EVO created a system of using a tool such as a POV and anything else that we might have to make this process a little less painful, we'll say.
Right. And even as I sit here, when I talk to you, I still have to try to get back in position and remind myself to breathe through my nose. And
we all have to.
Right.
No one's going to be perfect.
Right.
But if we don't strive for that, if we don't strive to allow the brain to understand when it's not happening, we stand no chance in hell of ever doing it when we need to, when the pressure's on the field of play.
It's funny, actually, when you talk about the pressure on the field of play, and when we have practices at the high school level or the college level, it doesn't matter. We compete, but when we have a game, all of a sudden there's like a million more factors. Coaches yelling at you, fans are screaming, people are playing at a higher intensity, and people freak out.
So
players freak out.
Is doing more harm than good.
In many ways, yeah.
Because you're not performing in practice with the same emotion.
Right.
As you would be as if you were against your rival.
So what are you practicing?
You're practicing to have compensatory action.
Exactly. And that's what we want to eliminate, right?
And that's why training takes on an even more important meaning than people may already think of it. That's why it's a team effort. There's no one thing to do to be the greatest in the world or the greatest that a human can be. There's many factors. We've mastered the opportunity to prepare you and to recover from performance. You've mastered the ability to teach the skills. Beautiful marriage.
Put them together. It's awesome.
That's right. What athlete could ever ask for anything more? I just did a phone seminar last week, and the question is all centered around, well, why would I want to train like this instead of the way everyone else trains? And how long will it take me to see results from doing this? Those things do nothing but set you back.
Yeah.
If you're worried about that, rather than mastering the basics, harnessing the power that we truly have as a human, you'll go nowhere. I mean, that's why we work together.
Right.
There is no other reason. We don't know each other. What we do know about each other is that you're striving to help people become the greatest that they can be.
Right.
And that's what we do. I don't know your end. I don't want to learn your end. You don't know our end. You don't want to take the time to do it because it only takes away from what you've already mastered.
Right.
Because you can't master everything.
Right.
So together, I mean, there just is no better opportunity for a kid than doing both of these things.
And it's amazing because, everywhere, so you guys are in Arizona. right? And now things are becoming more mobile, and that's great. And I'm so psyched for my athletes to have that option. But yet still, it's always the case that a parent or a family is like, oh, we've used this trainer for X amount of time, and Joe the trainer's the best. He worked with the Olympic sprinters, and here we go. And I'm like, but you got to try it, you know. And my results have been amazing, and I've only been doing it for a short period of time.
The question to ask is this: are you to the level that you feel you should be based on all the amount of work that you've done with whomever, whatever group that you've worked with? If you're not, something's wrong.
Right.
If I'm going to spend $1, I want a damn dollar's worth.
Right, exactly.
If I'm going to spend a minute exhausting everything about me as a human being to try and prepare to be a better lacrosse player, I damn sure want my minute's worth. If you're not getting that, then you need to look somewhere else. We don't know everything. We aren't perfect. But what we do is allow the brain to understand what perfection is and strive for it. And we let the brain do it, not us. We don't do a darn thing except allow the brain an opportunity to do things. From what I heard from the way you coach, that's what you do. You allow the brain to make a decision. You show it what should be done.
Exactly, yeah.
And then you put it in a situation where it can make a choice. That's all you want people to do. Everyone else, they train you to be strong. They train you to be fast. Just like the question you said. Well, John or Jane Doe coach the Olympic sprinters, so they know speed. Is it just speed that makes you a better lacrosse player?
No.
That's right. There's much more to it. Because if everyone who was fast went out for lacrosse, they'd be the best in the world. And we know that's not true. Is it just speed that makes you the better sprinter? The best sprinter in the world? No. You have to be able to get into position and do it for however many strides your event calls for. Just having speed does not mean you can do it. Just being able to execute a drill does not mean you're better at lacrosse. But if you breathe better, if you stand the way humans are designed, if you sit the way humans are designed to get into a seated position, you now can transfer that directly to lacrosse.
Right.
We do it in a myriad of ways. We use machines, we use a POV, we use all kinds of things because not everybody understands the message in exactly the same manner. But our message and your message are always one and the same. Yeah. There is only one way to do it. Exactly.
And it's I like what you talked about, the ability to make a choice. Because in lacrosse, for example, there's an overhand shot, and then there's a sidearm shot, and then there's an underhand shot. And the problem is most kids have a habitual shot. They only can shoot underhand. And though I might not know a whole lot about physiology and training when it comes to speed and strength, what I do understand is the skill of lacrosse. And I try to teach it in a way where they make that decision to shoot sidearm or to shoot underhand or to shoot overhand.
Based on stimulus.
Based on stimulus, based on what's going on.
So the brain has to make an appropriate decision based on if you're 6'2", 270 pounds, your opponent is 5'9", 170, and they're noticeably faster than you. That information tells your brain something to do.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to shoot over this guy because I'm 4.5 inches shorter. His reach is much greater than mine. He's taking up more space than I am, so maybe if I go around.
Yes.
See, that's what we train for.
Yeah.
To take all that information in, and in a 16th of a second, have the right outcome. That can only be done through proper preparation. Neurological stimulation of the human being to allow it to work by design.
And that's what it all circles back to, why sometimes the slower athlete is successful.
They're in position.
Because they process that, and they're in position to process it. And here we go.
Playing the game does not make you better at playing the game. It only reinforces what you do inappropriately.